Hello and welcome back to the Restricted View podcast.
Hello, hello.
As always, I'm Chris.
And I am Deborah.
Hopefully you know that by now, but we'll keep reminding you just in case you don't.
Just in case we change. We change our names.
In case we change our names, good point. And we've got a wonderful show for you today with another review, for we were at the theatre last night once again.
Yes.
We are recording this just after recording the episode 2, as you may have noticed. But we're very excited. We want to talk about this show as quickly as possible. Keeping it fresh in our minds.
Especially considering there aren't a lot of shows open at the moment, so it's nice to be able to talk about the ones that are.
Exactly. We're basically going to whatever's open.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, choices are limited, but things are opening up slowly but surely.
They are, yeah. And today we'll also talk a little bit about how we felt being back at the theatre. You know, just like COVID measures, security, like how safe we felt. So that will be in the second half of the podcast.
Yeah, we've been to 2 shows now in 2 different theatres with obviously 2 different front of house teams, handling things largely in similar ways, but also with some differences. We're going to talk about how, as Deborah said, how it made us feel.
Yes.
And how it might help you guys out making decisions if you're ready to go back to the theatre or not yet. Obviously, as always, we're going to give our opinions on some relatively recent news. And as ever, we're going to give you a fantastic tip. So, without any further ado, on with the show.
Yeah, let's get cracking. So this week, our news is that Dear Evan Hansen is coming to a theatre near you, and by theatre I mean the cinemas.
Yeah, absolutely. The film trailer dropped maybe a week ago at this stage, probably a couple of weeks by the time you're listening to this. And
it looks really good.
It looks really good. So this is a bit of a sore point certainly for me. I assume for you as well.
Yes, definitely.
We had tickets to see Dear Evan Hansen with a good friend of ours back
May last year.
May
our tickets were from 2020.
2020. Oh,
this is not 2020 anymore.
Yeah, sorry, May 2020. You're absolutely correct.
And obviously we couldn't do it because
we got them in a sale, so they were good seats.
They were really good seats
for really decent price.
Yeah. So here's to hoping that they'll do a sale again, so we can get really good seats again.
But aside from the money factor of the good seats for a good price,
we haven't seen it.
We still haven't seen the live show, and we're really upset about that. I am particularly upset about that because the trailer got me. Got me so excited. I thought. We'd heard one of the songs from it at a kind of variety concert.
Yeah, You Will Be Found, I think it was.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good, but it hadn't really gotten me fired up yet. I knew the story touched on the topic of suicide. Obviously, that's I've seen stuff like 13 Reasons Why. It's been done. Obviously, it's a very important topic to talk about in the arts, but it didn't sound particularly unique.
Mm-hmm.
But the trailer, I did not know. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone.
The premise,
isn't the
right?
Trailer, but the premise that I did not know about is super compelling.
Yeah, and it definitely got me very excited. I didn't know much about it either. I actually just knew, this is such a big hit in the US, and it won lots of awards. So I was expecting it to be a good show. However, I hadn't listened to the songs. As Chris mentioned, we saw one of the songs performed in a kind of a charity.
Best of Rock Musicals charity gala, I think it was.
Yeah, and that was good fun. However, if you know the song, you'll know that song out of context, it's just a nice song, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you know what it refers to, it kind of immediately it just gains a different weight, and it just feels very different. And having seen the trailer, I'm now very, very looking forward to seeing the show and the film. So the film. So we are in the UK, and the film for us is coming out on the 22nd of October in the cinemas. And hopefully we'll be able to go to the cinema to see it.
Which is only 4 days before the West End show is currently planned to reopen as well. So they're going to be somewhat synchronized.
Yeah.
If you're in the US, you're very fortunate because you're going to be able to see the show the film pretty much a whole month before us on the 24th of September 2021. So, very jealous.
Yes, but we're very much looking forward to it, especially because Ben Platt is reprising his role as, Evan. And that's exciting. Now, obviously, it's not the same thing as having seen him on Broadway, as some of you might have done. But still, get a taste of it.
One thing that slightly concerns me, and I could be completely wrong, maybe my ear is not correctly picking this up, but Ben Platt can sing, right?
He definitely can,
good singer.
He definitely can,
It still sounds like they've put him through pitch correction.
They might have done, maybe only for the trailer. Who knows? Maybe the trailer needs to sound a certain way.
They seem to do this on everybody, in even the people who can sing. They seem to do this, and it irritates me. Now, maybe I'm wrong. That's why I'm not going so far as to say this is fact, and I'm not okay with it. But my ear is maybe it's just the way my ear has been trained now to listen to musical films. It sounds like they've used pitch correction. And he's a good singer.
He is a good singer.
So I don't understand, and I'm potentially very irritated about this.
Let's see what happens in the actual film, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get to the theatre as well to see it soon enough, as soon as it opens.
And we might even, something I hadn't thought about is maybe perhaps we'll want to have on our podcast talk about the film after we've seen it. It's quite a bit away right now.
I mean, there's lots of great films being done of musicals
and not so great ones too.
Yes, but I think all the trailers kind of look very interesting.
Oh, the current ones, look good.
So the trailer for West Side Story looks good. The trailer for In the Heights, as much as you didn't particularly like the actual stage show, the trailer for In the Heights I think looks really good, and I'm excited.
And I love
to see
Hamilton,
it.
so don't think I'm a Lin-Manuel Miranda hater or anything. I wasn't massively keen on the In the Heights stage show we saw.
No, I guess it wasn't the best production, but I do think it has potential, so I am excited to seeing the film, especially because it's kind of filmed in New York. I think some of it's in New York, probably all sets actually, but I think a lot of the feel of the place of the Washington Heights, I think.
Yeah, Washington Heights.
Will be there, so I'm excited for that. And West Side Story, which. Confession time. I've never seen West Side Story. I've never seen the film. I've never seen the stage production.
I've been in it, but I've never seen it.
So I am looking forward to seeing that, and hopefully someone will put it on stage as well, so I can go see it.
I'm sure it'll come.
In the meantime, if the film is successful enough,
absolutely,
someone will put on a production of it.
Yeah, but let us know actually if that's something. I'd be very interested to know if you're interested in us talking about and/or reviewing musical films that they come out in addition to. I mean, obviously this is primarily a podcast about live theatre, but I think there's potentially a place for us discussing.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Adaptions.
Especially when they have such great actors as well, like stage actors playing the roles. I think it's interesting to see.
That's a particularly big deal. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so let us know if you go to the restricted.view on Instagram. Find the this episode's.
You can comment on any image that
sure.
takes your fancy, because we'll be replying.
Comment on any image, but if you comment on the image associated with this particular episode, it'll make it slightly easier for us to find.
True.
But yeah, let us know. It'll be interested to know, and if more people who want it, the greater likely will do it. But anyway, Dear Evan Hansen, coming very soon to a movie theatre near you. And also, hopefully soon, to a theatre near you. So on to our From the Cheap Seats section. This week we are reviewing our most recent theatre experience, which was going to see Amélie the Musical at the Criterion Theatre in London.
Yes, before we forget, Amélie is booking until September 2021 at the moment. So, just good to tell you that, I think, and put it out there, so if you want to book, you already know when you can book until.
Yeah, so it's based on the French film from 2001, I want to say.
Yes, it's in English. I will not try and pronounce it in French, but the actual title is something like the fabulous fate of Amélie Poulain. That is the French title. It's also in Portuguese, was also translated as such, but in English it's called Amélie.
Amélie,
which is fine.
And it's called Amélie the Musical. That's the stage version. With music by Daniel Messe, book by Craig Lucas, and lyrics by Nathan Tyson and Daniel Messe. The production we saw was directed by Michael Fentman, who we've only seen one of his previous works. We saw his production of The Importance of Being Earnest in the Vaudeville Theatre during Oscar Wilde's season a few years. 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. 2019 maybe?
Which we enjoyed. We definitely enjoyed the production of it, but I don't actually particularly have any particular memory of its directing.
No.
Frankly.
Yeah. And this is a rewrite of the original Amélie musical that premiered on Broadway a few years back. I think 2019, I want to say. Maybe before. No, I think it was before that. But then I think it was there after that as well. I'm not sure. It's very different. I'm not familiar with the Broadway version.
No, you've listened to the music.
So after the show yesterday, I was looking for the music on Spotify, and I wrongly assume that the music, the original cast recording, the Broadway cast recording, would have the same music. So I started listening to it, and I was like, no, hang on, this is not the right thing. Luckily, there is a London cast recording, which is the music that we listened to yesterday.
And not only is the music completely different, well, not completely different, but very different.
It's very different, yeah.
The staging is completely different. Again, not completely different. It's
very different. Yes, I mean, we haven't seen, bearing in mind we have not seen
but we've seen footage.
Broadway, exactly, we've seen footage on we've seen it on YouTube, and the music seems to me, I haven't listened to the whole cast recording, the Broadway cast recording, but it does seem to me that the songs are a lot more poppy, whereas this production, in this production, the songs are they have a kind of like a more French kind of feel to them.
Yeah, I saw people complaining about Philippa Sue's French pronunciation.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but the this production we saw is starring Audrey Brisson, which I just gave a somewhat French accent to.
I believe
she's French Canadian.
Yes,
she's
Canadian, yeah.
And she speaks French, I believe, or she grew, I believe she grew up speaking some French anyway.
Yeah, and she was her accent was pretty good as far as I can judge.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, I don't speak French. For me, it was perfectly good. Yes. I have seen shows in Broadway, and sometimes the pronunciation of European sounding things can be little bit wacky. So
yeah, so it was
I'm assuming that's what happened with Philippa Sue.
Well, in the case of Audrey Brisson, she was very it was very consistent. I think her accent, because sometimes that's another problem. Their accents, usually you get English actors, English speaking actors trying to do a French accent, and it ends up coming out Russian or German. So it's it's nice.
In the case of Aidan Gillen in Game of Thrones, he can go from Irish to French to Westerosi to English.
I think he settled in Irish, didn't he, at the end?
For the last few seasons, he just talks normally.
He did the Liam Neeson thing. I'll just be Irish. Nobody cares,
Liam Neeson just does it from the start.
But did he do that at the beginning of his career? We need to find out.
Good question. Well, no, I think he did a German accent as Oscar Schindler, probably, didn't he?
I don't know. Maybe he was Irish there too.
I actually can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen that. But yeah, so as we say, it's a bit, the one in America, the with Philippa Sue, as we say, it was not well received. It closed down very quickly. It seems to have undergone extensive rewrites, and as a result, being reasonably well received here so far. It seems.
Yeah. So it went on tour, and then it went to the Other Palace, I believe, the beginning of last year.
Yeah, I remember it going there, and we were tempted to go see it.
We were tempted to go see it, but I think it was pretty much sold out at most of the performances. And now it's obviously one of the shows that are open, and we thought it was a brilliant opportunity to go. I was sold straight away when Chris said actor-musicians. I was just like, yes.
Well, I said that.
Yeah, you told me they were actor-musicians, yes. And I was just like, yes, I love actor-musicians. As I said to Chris yesterday when we came out of the theatre, I think actor-musicians on the stage show are like my Achilles heel. If they're there, I'm like, I am very much kind of tending towards really enjoying it.
So I think you better explain what this actor musicians means, because as regular listeners know, I've been to many shows in my lifetime. This was only the fourth time I've ever seen. Well, not the fourth time, the fourth show I've ever seen.
Only my second one.
Yeah,
but I do love it.
Yeah,
I love
what it means is it's basically when there is no orchestra. And actually, I've forgotten that I told you this, because I remember we were in the front row and we've been sitting there for a good 10 minutes, and about 5 minutes before it started, I just went, wait, there's no orchestra. And
but then you realize they were actors.
I remember that. Yeah, well, I think you reminded me. Basically, the on-stage crew cast are both orchestra and ensemble. So it can be kind of done in various ways. In this particular show, Amélie herself didn't play an instrument, I think, at any point apart from for the very end, the encore after the curtain call. But every other character from lead to ensemble played instruments while singing and dancing. There were a handful of people who didn't have any spoken lines whatsoever, no solo lines. They were just instrumentalists and ensemble members. So they were essentially chorus and orchestra.
Yeah.
And then there were other people who were ensemble and orchestra, and then other people who were main cast plus orchestra. And yeah, essentially, so it's a funny one. I mean, in one way, is it sad that it removes the orchestra? Maybe, because it kind of essentially, it kind of halves the number of people taking part in the production. So in a way, that's sad. Maybe a bit sad from a perspective of opportunity. But But it is incredible. It's quite. If you haven't seen that type of performance before, it is definitely a bit of a shock the first time. But it is brilliant and it is awesome, and it's the sheer talent on display. I mean, last week I discussed slightly how I dabbled with being a performer, but decided it was too much work, far too much effort, and I never even made it anyway. I mean, I was a decent singer, I was a decent actor. I wasn't a good dancer. That's already a bit of a problem. But you can definitely get by in the West End without being able to dance as a man. But if the trend goes towards acting musicians, I'd have been screwed. I'd have been out of a job because I cannot play an instrument, and I sure as heck can't play an instrument while singing and dancing and moving rhythmically. It's like the sheer talent.
It was very impressive.
Insane. It's like it's almost. Do you know when you see someone so talented that annoys you?
Yeah, and especially because some of them played more than one instrument.
Yeah, that's the one. Oh, that's so irritating.
It's like, what? How can you do that? You shouldn't be allowed to do it.
Obviously, I'm saying irritating and all in good fun. It's very impressive, and I'm glad that they
and look, I don't think it will. I don't think the trend will go that way. I think there's space for shows with orchestras and like the big orchestra pieces, and there's also
there's some shows you couldn't do like this.
Exactly, and then there's room for shows like this, and I think.
Although we say that, and I saw a production of Chess that did this. I mean, Chess has a big orchestra.
I can't imagine that. Yeah, I can't imagine it. But we saw Chess with the London Orchestra, wasn't it?
Yeah, London. Yeah.
So it's hard to imagine it without it, but I'm sure it's possible. But I think what this does to a show, and this is the case with Once. Once was the only other show I had ever seen that had actor musicians, and it did that to Once, and I think it does it to Amélie. It kind of creates a very intimate space. Obviously, there's
a sense of cohesion.
There's a sense of everybody belongs. There's almost a sense of immersion, even though you're not on stage. And I also attribute that to the lighting. I think the lighting has a part to play because, unlike other shows, that sometimes you have really bright lights at certain times. The lights for Amélie, and also again Once. I'll talk about Once more in a further episode. But the lights are kind of muted. Mm-hmm. It's all very kind of atmospheric and. Just lovely. I particularly love it. Love that type of production.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly stylized. It's immensely because it's almost like I talked briefly about realism versus naturalism during our review of The Mousetrap, and it's kind of like musicals obviously already automatically have got that step removed from realism by introducing
singing.
Well, yeah,
singing and dancing,
yeah.
Right?
Because is singing what's the word diatric sound versus non-diatric sound that the characters can hear, sound that's coming from the plot or not from the plot. Is music in a musical diatric or not? Can the actors hear it or not? Who knows?
I think it's too early in the day for me to have this conversation.
Yeah. But my point, so it's already kind of got that step removed from reality, and then this actor musician thing. Even more so, like just heavily stylizes the performance into almost a pure artwork representation of real life. It's no longer a depiction of reality. It's now not. So a realistic play is like a depiction of reality, right?
Yes.
Sorry, it's like a depiction of reality.
Yeah.
A musical has removed that to the point where by a musical kind of inherently makes that it more of an interpretation or a what's the word? Not to
I don't know. I think you're implying that people don't just randomly burst into song in
real
life.
Of course. I'm trying to be a little. I'm trying to be more articulate.
Speak for yourself,
but
Chris.
I'm also failing. But then having it when you have the actor musician element, it's now completely removed from reality. Like there's no willing suspension disbelief that this is. You're accepting it as nothing more than a representation rather than a depiction of reality.
Okay,
that's it. Representation versus depiction.
Okay,
so you got your play like The Mousetrap that depicts reality. A music kind of represents reality slightly wonkily, and then but this actor musician thing is now basically just an art movement that's meant to vaguely present a plot.
Yeah, sure, I get that. But you see, I think particularly works for Amélie, and it particularly works for a show like Amélie, which is very whimsical. I think
Oh, yeah,
whimsical is the adjective I choose to define this play. This musical.
Whimsical's the adjective you choose if you're trying to be kind. If you were trying to be if you were to be critical of it, you probably use different words.
I'm trying to be kind because I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, but
Yeah.
but I definitely
Obviously
there's definitely problems with it.
Okay, so where do you want to start then?
We don't have to jump straight into negatives.
No, not necessarily negatives.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to mention by the way, Audrey Bresson. We actually saw her in as Jiminy Cricket in the Pinocchio production.
Did we?
National.
Ah.
She was a puppeteer for Jiminy Cricket. Because she's on Cirque du Soleil. She's
a lot of Cirque du Soleil, yes.
So she's an acrobat, a puppeteer, a vocalist.
I was very impressed because so basically I'll get into it. I think straight away, so there's no curtains. Straight away you get to the theater and you have you see the set, and the set's kind of representation of the Paris metro. And it's done very stylistically. It's just beautiful. And Amélie's flat is essentially inside a clock. And there's a whole thing of how she gets to her flat that does include some, you need some arm strength there. That I did think, how does she do it? Because I thought I wouldn't be able to do it.
She hangs off of a lampshade, which brings her above.
Yeah, and the more kind of athletic inclined of you might say, this is ridiculous, Deborah. Obviously anyone can do it. I'm sure I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, I think I could hang on to something for 4 seconds.
Yeah, I think I could hang on to something, but I would not.
She also wasn't hanging on. She also hooked herself.
I know, but I wouldn't land gracefully.
Yeah, the only thing I was impressed by actually in that was when she arrived at the top every time. It didn't look like a lot of room for her on the ledge.
No,
but she seemed
did it really well. Yeah.
Foot. Yeah, I thought the set was pretty good too. The set was very very functional. For what it was,
and it was
because they needed a lot of space to be able to play their instruments and move around, and it was visually quite fulfilling, without being extremely interesting. I mean, it was just one set that didn't.
It was strangely minimalistic as well.
Yeah, it was weirdly minimalistic, despite the fact they had a floating lampshade.
A bit like Once. Sorry, I'll stop mentioning Once.
No, it's actually not a good comparison. Once is like minimalistic is much more minimalistic than this. It's a blank stage with a bar in the back. That's it.
We'll talk about this later.
This is
no, there's a lot more to this one, definitely. But no, I mean just to say the set pieces that were used and moved about are like they
two
use
pianos. That's it.
They use the pianos. They use the yes, exactly.
One piano once. That's it.
And chairs.
50% more.
And chairs.
50% more moving stuff.
Fair enough.
And Amélie has chairs and tables. Once doesn't even have tables. It just has chairs. At one point, once they used two chairs to represent a bed.
That's very true. They do that.
Once is far more minimalistic in terms of its
At least they have a vacuum.
They do have a Hoover. They couldn't not have a Hoover, in fairness. But yeah, the set is we definitely agree that's minimalistic, regardless of whether it's more or less minimalistic than any other than other productions of other shows. It's definitely minimalistic and visually reasonably interesting. But it's definitely not going to win any Best Set awards, in my opinion.
I think it could be nominated.
Would win though.
That's fine.
So I thought so Amélie as a character is quirky and odd. And that works in the first half. In the second half she started to irritate me.
I think that happened because the second I think the first act goes on pretty smoothly. Mm-hmm. Like you kind of follow it. It is a dreamlike show, so there's a lot of kind of surreal and kind of nonsense scenes. And now when I say nonsense, but like, think Alice in Wonderland, think that type of thing. Think that type of creation that things don't really necessarily make a lot of sense. But there's a lot of play involved.
I don't agree. That only happens the first 10 minutes when she's a child, and then it stops. Things continue to be nonsensical, but not in a surreal way, only because the character's actions start making less and less sense, particularly in the second act.
Well, I'm not sure if I agree, because we have a scene with her funeral. I know it's her imagination, but I think there's a lot of nods to nonsense. But maybe, look, she goes up to her flat. She keeps going up to her flat in the with a lampshade. That's not realistic.
Yeah, but we're already established that it's not a realist. The thing is, you have to separate surrealism from stage representations of reality.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? It's not. Is it surreal when when the two chairs in once become a bed. That's not realistic, but it's not surreal.
No.
Not surreal doesn't mean not realistic.
No, I guess that's true, and they established an agreement with the audience, and we know what's expected from the show and what isn't,
exactly
what isn't, right? But yes, I guess it goes too far into like to the other side maybe. I think some of the elements don't work as well, but I do think that in the second half, then the first half this is better than in the first half. I think the second half suffers from being too long.
The second half.
Yes, the second half. I felt the time in the second half when I didn't in the first half.
Yeah, it's too long for what it does rather than just being too much time.
And I think that even though because basically, right, you have the story of this girl who's going about the world kind of not living in it. She kind of watches the world go by and she watches people and she is kind of in her little world, very lonely. For many reasons, some of them not as fleshed out as maybe they should have been. And that's our cat, if you can hear that. I think that some characters, some of the issues were better explained in the first half, and then you have a resolution to them. But some of them were not as clear. So what happens to the greengrocers, for example, is not very clear why that's there. I mean, I feel like that's, for example, a plot point that could have been removed.
Yeah, I mean the plot, we haven't really talked about the plot. And it's not really a show that it's not really a show that can be spoiled per se, I don't think. But obviously we won't talk about any massively specific details. But the plot is essentially about this girl who she was lonely as a child. Her parents believed she had a
heart condition,
which I've looked at the synopsis. I haven't seen the film. Apparently in the film it's mistakenly believed she has a heart condition, which is not established in the play, in the musical. She and as a result, she's homeschooled and she's
very lonely. She doesn't have contact with other children,
and she develops a vivid imagination. Apparently, although that stops after the first 10 minutes of the show. Frankly, apart from imagining her own funeral, which I think that's a pretty common thing to do to imagine what people react when you die. I don't think that's very unique to her. And then basically she stumbles across a box in her apartment, which clearly belonged to someone who used to live there, and she imagines how happy it might make that person if she reunited with the box. So she goes on a mission to find the person who owned this box, promising to herself that if this does indeed make this person happy, she will then kind of dedicate herself to trying to bring happiness to people where she can. And the story of the first half is basically that she over the course of the first half, she finds him. It works. He's very happy. It's quite a moving scene.
And I quite like the fact that he is established as a character in the first number.
In the prologue.
So we hear about this boy who buried a little box of treasures.
Yeah. That's a great opening number as well, by the way.
Yeah, it's great,
But then throughout her journey throughout Paris looking for this person, she bumps into a guy a few times. And there's kind of a love at first sight sort of thing going on. And he's a bit funny as well. And then the second half is basically just nothing, really. It's just kind of messing about whilst they bump into each other a few more times, and she kind of plays a game of cat and mouse with him.
Exactly the words I was going to use. Yes. I think the second half is basically her trying to meet but not trying to meet, and then he
wants to meet, and then she's just being difficult.
Yeah, I think...
And it's passed off as quirkiness, and it's exactly what's wrong with Sheldon Cooper. He's a misogynist passed off as quirkiness, and she's just a jerk passed off as quirkiness. And that's kind of annoying. And I really found Amélie, it began to irritate me as a character.
Well, I don't have... you will notice that I don't have as strong opinions as Chris about things, usually. I like Amélie as a character. And I do understand...
I don't hate her.
Look, I do understand what the second half does. Because you have this character who has been alone her whole life. She doesn't really understand relationships. And she doesn't understand what it involves and what she has to give up to be in one. And I think that's what they're trying to do, I think. They're trying to portray her reluctance to enter a relationship, to kind of open herself up to someone, someone
this
new.
Is just speaking to the guy she fancies, and it's been established. It's established that she's had multiple boyfriends.
Yes,
so
because she actually likes him. I think there's a they recognize each other. They see each other and they see that they're not common. They're not, they kind of they see uniqueness in one another, and I think that's probably what scares her. So I do get that, and that's why I sympathize with her character. But at the same time, then I do also agree that maybe they take it too far.
Yeah,
And I think for the show,
I think the film, from what I've gathered, the film also goes too far. But the film also works hard at establishing surrealism, actual surrealism.
yes, it is. You have objects talking to her all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, like dreamlike levels of illogic, which is what street surrealism is really.
Yeah, and the film has a narrator as well, which the show kind of does as well. One of the actors usually kind of tells us a little bit about what's happening.
Yeah. But that's true.
Maybe they could have used
go into that fully.
Yeah, so maybe they could have used that more to establish certain things a little bit quicker.
Bit more
Usually not a thing I would say. I would potentially say stop telling us and show us. But I guess in this particular situation, it would have worked to be told certain
But
things.
the only thing worse than telling not showing is to only half commit to the telling. You know.
Fair enough.
I do find it odd as well that it kind of subverts the romance genre a little bit by not making the happily ever after assumption. You know that it's just that they've met and it's just assumed that they're going to have happily ever after. There's a bit more realism to that, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
About I think even saying I don't know what's going to happen next. Right.
Yeah, we'll be together in 80 years.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Her victory isn't
when we're 80.
finding her happily ever after. Her victory is kind of is finding the courage to open up herself.
It's
a little bit,
happy for now.
Yeah,
instead of happily ever after.
Which is super weird because it's established earlier on the plot that very early on through dialogue that she already has found the courage to open herself up a little bit and go on dates. So I don't know. But so it's weird that they go with that. They subvert the genre in that way, but then also have the characters behaving in completely insane ways. Like why? Half the things Amélie does in the second act don't make any sense whatsoever, and it makes no sense at all that the guy would have any interest in meeting her. She's insane. So many red flags. Why would you go near her?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why maybe they should have cut that a little bit shorter.
They either needed to cut a lot of the insane behavior, or as I said, I haven't seen the film. I know it's a polarizing film, but if you want to get her her ridiculous levels of quirkiness across in a way that makes sense, they needed to really double down on the surrealism.
Even though it is quite surreal most of the time, but not
necessarily.
not necessarily not enough, I guess, because it's a lot of the time is established that it's her imagination rather than things talking to her. Really.
Yeah, well, things talking to her would be her imagination, but that's a surreal presentation of an imagination. Sure. Whereas, like, in fine, I'll concede if you want that her imagining her funeral is done in a slightly surreal way because it's depicted. But as I said, that's not a unique thing to her character. Everyone on Earth imagines how people will react to their death at some point in their lifetime. It's a completely normal thing to do. So if you've done it, don't worry. Everyone does it. It's just I don't know. Her character doesn't make a lot of sense, and as a result, starts to irritate me as it goes on. But I liked her in the first half, and I don't hate her in the second half. It's just I don't know. I assumed it would go somewhere other than.
I guess it goes somewhere, but the problem is it takes far too long to get there.
And it doesn't go to a particular. And the place it goes to is just she's willing to have a boyfriend, which she's already done.
No, because going on dates and opening up to someone are two completely different things.
But we don't know if she's opened up to him. They haven't had their first date yet.
I think she has. I think the point is that she has.
The point is she's going to. So basically, the big resolution is she's promising to do something. We don't even see if she does it or not. You know what I mean? She might as well just come out on the stage and say, "I'm going to open up to a boyfriend," and then end curtains. Did she do it? Doesn't matter.
I think it's pretty obvious that she does.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And especially with I think it's not. I don't think it's an assumption. I think we see it. I think that the final scene between the two of them. Sorry, my pen fell. The final scene between the two of them is very clearly her opening up.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely there is an assumption because you don't see it. So it definitely is an assumption. She could.
Yeah, I disagree that you don't see it. I think you do see it.
If you were to use the evidence presented on stage up to that point, then as soon as the curtain goes down, she turns and runs. She literally does it. The final song is actually "Don't Go, but also don't come closer."
Sure,
which is really weird.
It's a tentative thing. I actually think that song is a very good song.
But the end should it should end with "Okay, come closer" after all.
Don't know if I agree with that. I think it works that way.
Well, I don't. The character doesn't go. The character doesn't really change because the song doesn't. Because the song ends with "Stay where you are."
Oh,
It's
but
actually-
do you have to change completely to be with someone?
No, but you have to change. In order to experience change, you have to change,
Sure.
and things stay exactly as they are. So there isn't really a journey. It's just a woman being quirky for 2.5 hours.
I don't think that's the case. I think that there is a journey. I think she as you said yourself, she goes and she finds this box, she finds someone, she decides to help people, and she does that throughout the show. It doesn't matter if you didn't like the fact that there were a lot of subplots. She does help people, and she finds a purpose.
No,
And she even manages. She helps her father, who is also kind of stuck in his life alone. She managed to help him. She helps her colleagues. So I think there is a journey in that sense, and then she kind of realizes it's time to she needs to do something. She can't just kind of make other people do things.
Actually, there are side plots. There's too many of them.
I agree.
And they're inconsequential.
I agree there too.
They don't matter. And the main plot, what is the main plot? Is the main plot her trying to pay happiness forward, or is the main plot her and this boy? What's the plot?
Both. No, I think the main plot is her. In her journey.
And on the train home,
and that's why I disagree with you that there is no journey.
I challenged you. I said, "Here's what's wrong with the plot. What's the plot?" And you didn't know how to answer.
Yes, I don't think it's very clear, and I don't think it's necessarily a show one would go see for the plot.
No, and that brings me on to.
And sometimes you read books not for the plot either, and so you see things for the art of it, and I think that's one of those shows.
And that kind of brings me on to my positive points, which is the music's pretty damn good.
The music is great.
I really enjoy the music, and I really enjoy the musical performances, as we said, with the acting musicians. The plot is, as I said, I enjoyed the first half of the plot, and I think the plot goes crazy in the second half, and it lost my interest, and it lost my will. I wasn't willing to spend my disbelief anymore for the purpose of the plot. But as Deborah says, maybe you don't go to it for that.
I don't think you do.
I mean, you do if you love Amélie the film. If you love that film and you really enjoy the plot of it and you enjoy although maybe you don't because I haven't seen the film, and maybe I'm right that the film works because of its surrealism.
I saw the film far too long ago to actually remember.
If the film works because of its surrealism, then this might not work for you. If the film works, if you enjoy the plot regardless of the surrealistic elements, then you'll still like the plot here. But if you like quality musical theatre, you will still get value out of this, in my opinion, because the music is very, very good. I really enjoyed. Funny enough, this is another negative actually, because but I have to say it. Audrey Brisson, I've tracked down videos of her singing, and she is a good singer, but I did not like her vocal choices in this. She chooses to sing in character, which obviously you should, but she lets the character affect her voice very heavily. And as a result, I do not like the way she sings. She hits all the right notes, don't get me wrong. I just don't find it a pleasant sound. Her Amélie sings in a certain way, which I didn't enjoy, which was a pity because she's a really good singer.
I thought the same at the start. However, I think she had me at the end. I think she is very compelling to watch. I think she's very charming.
Yeah, I like her.
So it's very easy to like her. It's so I kind of just kind of accepted it, and I enjoyed it. I also believe she's a very good singer, having listened to her and other things. And even sometimes in the show, sometimes you could hear that it
did break once or twice.
Yeah. But so I do think she's very good, and she was a very good Amélie. Full stop. Very, very. So when sometimes there are just actors that are very pleasant to watch, and I think she's one of those people. She's very she kind of
she commands the stage well.
She does yeah.
I thought Chris Jarrett, who played
Nino,
the love interest, had a really pleasant voice.
Yeah, he was lovely.
My favorite song from it, When the Booth Goes Bright. I really enjoyed that. I thought his performance was really good. And actually, it's really worth pointing out that apart from seeing the trailer, I had heard none of the music before, and I find enjoying music the first time you hear it is something that's often hard to do. But I really enjoyed most of the songs a lot, despite it being the first time I'd heard them all. which I think is a testament to the quality of the writing of the music.
Yeah, I really enjoyed all the songs. So I actually wrote down my notes. Great music, because I really loved it. I think,
and
again,
the cast overall were brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliantly talented.
And again, the fact that they are playing it on stage, it's a bit like it's French. It's a bit folksy. It's just really lovely.
I love the accordion. Great accordion.
Yes, yeah. So it was
really beautiful artistic opening. The opening number, which sets up some of the characters and just sets up the vibe of Paris, is really artistic and lovely. There's this bit where there's like the blind busker, and the blind busker catches a blue bottle fly in his hand, and it's all very very. It's hard to explain. It's all wonderfully artistic.
Yeah, it's beautifully staged. I think, and it's well directed. I do like. I liked. I mean, everything. I think actually it's a lovely show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and I was now thinking about the plot because we were talking about it, and it just made me think of the fact that it is about the songs talk about how it is about like how everyone's connected. I think it's the first or second number that everyone's connected.
And they repeat it at the end, don't they? As well, I think.
Yes,
it's the first number. I think.
And yes, I think that's part of it, and I think that's why it feels like the plot is very loose, just because you are actually seeing. So Amélie is connecting all these people, right? It's her connection to them that almost kind of propels the show, but it's not necessarily a one definite plot, kind of very obvious plot. That you have a lot of, it's how everyone's connected to each other.
I guess you want to say what the main plot is. Using what you've said as a springboard, it's about the fact that Amélie is she's almost the facilitator of other people's existences, and it's about her finding her own place.
Yeah, I think so,
rather than her place in relation to other people.
Yeah, but also kind of just also realizing that even though she's very lonely, and we see her like she had a lonely childhood and all that, the message of everyone's connected is still there, and it's there for her as well. And when she realizes that she's part of that everyone, she's not watching everyone, because I think the very fact that her flat is above everyone else gives a sense of watching, and she has a magnifying glass.
It's like a telescope.
Telescope. Yes, yeah. She has a spyglass from like and she watches people with it. And
one of her songs she sings is "Look out the window, I see views of other windows."
Yeah.
It's about someone who watches life
instead of living
it, learning to live it. And it's kind of interesting because I love those kind of stories. Usually, I always say the best stories are the stories where nothing really happens. Which obviously depends. There's a huge caveat to that sentence. Obviously, Lord of the Rings would be rubbish if nothing happened. But I love those human stories where it's completely about the internal journey that the character goes on, and actually this fits that category. And I guess I just don't think they portray Amélie's internal journey in a compelling or even in an informative way. They don't get it across.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think there is room for improvement in that sense. And maybe it would be to perhaps remove one or two of the side plots and focus on her a little more.
Yeah, I think we need more time with her, and I think we need more. Do you know what? As I think I said to you yesterday, it's a very much ensemble piece. There's no real, because there's like no real solo numbers. Like when Nino sings "When the Booth Goes Bright," most of it is being sang. It's been sang with it. Most of the time, he's not singing solo.
Yeah.
Amélie has. I don't know if she has any complete solos. So there's no aria. There's no like "I want" moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it needs that. It needs an "I want" song from Amélie. It needs that moment of the emotions becoming too much, and all she can do is just sing out by herself. Where everyone else just shuts up, sits down, plays their instruments, and facilitates her, which also would have been quite an interesting mirroring of the fact that she's facilitating the characters.
Yeah. I think it could do with something like that.
You keep mentioning Once. Once is a really good example of a play where nothing happens. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. Some stuff happens. He records a record, right? But very little.
And
happens.
He moves on with his life.
Yeah, but it's all. But all the important stuff that happens is in their minds, in their hearts.
Yeah.
Is the journey? Yeah. Is the things that they realize and about themselves. And
and the things that they trigger on each other as well.
Yeah,
what they facilitate each other's kind of growth.
And I think Amelie is meant to be that, and it for whatever reason, maybe hopefully throughout our our ranting and my ranting and raving, hopefully we've somehow somewhere along the line identified some of the reasons why it didn't work. But when push comes to shove, I can't tell you exactly why it didn't work. But for me, it just didn't hit home. I'm at the end. She's supposed to have changed, but I didn't see it, and I didn't see her take that journey, even though I literally watched it happen. Okay,
that was deep. But yeah, I think there's room for improvement, and it is a show that has gone through a lot of rewrites already, and it might happen again. I think the music is perfect as it is. It might, as you said, maybe you can add another moment of her being, kind of really wanting something.
Yeah, you need a really oomphy aria to be written for Amelie, and then obviously you need any changes that were necessary to facilitate various other story changes and staging changes. But for the most part, I think it's in good shape. I think it possibly does need a little bit more work, though.
But having said all that, would you still recommend people to see it?
Would I for the right price? I mean, I don't think you're gonna. I don't think in 10 years' time from now, if you didn't see it, it'll be one of the ones that got away from you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a classic. If someone goes to 10 shows a year, I don't think I'd be recommending it's one of the 10 you go to this year.
Okay.
But if you go to see 20, yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm.
If you love Amelie the film,
definitely go see
it. Because even if you didn't, even if it wasn't completely for you, I think you'll be glad you went to see it.
Yeah.
Glad you got to experience it. So if you love Amelie, go see it. If you're
I was actually today talking to a friend of mine whose favorite film is Amelie, and I told her that she would like it, and Renata, I definitely think you'd like it.
And if you like acting musicians, go see it.
Oh yeah.
If you haven't seen acting musicians before and you like the sound of it, go see it.
Yeah, I would say.
And if you can get good price tickets,
definitely go see it.
Go see it, but don't pay through the nose for this one.
Yeah, well, most of the time we'll say don't pay through the nose for most shows, I'd say, because you can always get deals. But I think that I would recommend it to people. I think it's a good show, and I think it's a good night out. You'll come out of it feeling good. It's a feel-good show at the end of the day, I think. And I think artistically it's beautiful. Even if the plot maybe is not as flashed out as you would have wanted. So if you're not necessarily looking for plot as well, like if you want the enjoyment of great music and just some great staging, I do recommend it.
Mm-hmm. 3 stars. We don't give star reviews.
I think it's 4 from me.
Ooh, we don't give star reviews. Stop
okay,
it.
Sorry. Okay.
But yeah, so I think hopefully the content of our conversation will help you decide if you actually want to go see it or not. But yeah, as long as you don't pay for the really, really expensive seats, I think you'll probably feel you got your money's worth.
Oh, I think yeah. I mean, talent wise, oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent on stage, and that's always really wonderful to see, even if it makes me seethe with jealousy.
So, as Chris was suggesting in our review, that you go see Amelie if you manage to get good price tickets. A good way to do that is using TodayTix, and that's our tip for today. TodayTix, which you might already have heard of and might already be using, but if you aren't, go and download the app right now. It's called TodayTix. They do
spelled an X.
Yes.
TODAYTIX.
Yes, and they do. They every so often have great deals. They do like a back to theater deal, so that's how we got our Amelie tickets actually, through that deal. But most importantly, and I think they're the best feature of TodayTix is their rush tickets. So rush tickets are coming back slowly. They used to be ubiquitous before the pandemic for most shows. Now only I think 6 is doing them. The show 6. And what it means is that
the show 6, not 6 shows.
Not 6 shows. What it means is that you can get tickets for the day of the performance at 10 a.m. You join the page and you click on them and try to get tickets. It can be tough, especially for 6. That is a very popular show, but super useful to get really good price tickets in usually really good seats as well.
Yeah, I think when they first came out, they were always front row. But
Yeah.
now they're basically just good seats, and they usually cost 25 quid, I think.
Usually
sometimes
25.
20.
25 for stalls, or usually stalls or dress circle, which are the first two levels. Usually very good seats. Usually seats that cost about £80, sometimes more.
Yeah, definitely. We went. I know we went to. There's one show we went to through Rush Tickets, like 3 times, and we ended up sitting the stalls one time, the circle one time, the upper circle another time. But they were all great.
They're
great
always
seats.
great. They're always worth the money. So do keep your eyes out, because I'm sure other shows will start using Today Ticks again.
100%. Well, yeah, and as it is called Rush Tickets for a reason. Sometimes, don't get me wrong. Sometimes they're still on sale. There's still some available a few hours later.
Yes.
But
rarely.
More often than not, they sell out in the first few minutes. So you need to be on the app at 5 to 10, waiting for it to go gold and go.
Exactly, and to grab your tickets. But yeah, that's our tip for today. Today Ticks, both for just tickets in general, and also for Rush Tickets.
It's also worth noting that we mentioned we had very cheap tickets for Dear Evan Hansen, which we unfortunately didn't get to use. They also that was also through one of their many sales.
Yes, we got really, really good seats.
They just do sales sometimes.
Yeah. So they had, I think last year was a spring sale. That's how we got it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, spring at the theatre last year did not happen, but hopefully, here's to more sales and more shows opening up.
And as you may know, I think all theatres need to do are legally obligated to sell day tickets.
I believe so, for usually more affordable prices as well. So they usually cost.
I think Rush Tickets is
less.
That, isn't it?
I believe so. Yes, I think that's it. So it basically saves you from queuing at the theatre, which is super handy.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't mind. If you live in London and whether you go to a show tonight or not doesn't really matter, then you're in luck.
Yeah.
It's so because even if you don't win it, we'll try again tomorrow.
Exactly. So that's our tip for today. Today Ticks. We are not sponsored by Today Ticks, but hopefully one day we will be.
So our last section for today, far too many notes, as we promised, is this week about our general experience of starting to go back to the theatre. We've now seen 2 shows. We've seen Mousetrap at St. Martin's Theatre, and we've seen Amélie at the Criterion Theatre. So we've experienced, and we also did go back to see Mystery Movie Night back in the Vaudeville.
Yes,
was it? In December. So we've had some experience now of seeing shows under current COVID restrictions, and how safe we did or did not feel, and how well the front of house teams did or did not perform. We'd like to share some of those thoughts with you in case you guys are thinking about going back to the theatre soon.
Especially because we know that how comfortable people feel to do these things is very different. I think some people will take a little longer. Some people are more comfortable to do it now. I think it's worth saying that Chris and I have had our vaccinations, our first dose, which kind of makes us feel a little bit safer as well. So maybe if you haven't yet and you want to wait a little bit longer, it's completely understandable. But anyway, I think we're going to talk a little bit about how we felt with these first experiences. And the first thing I'd like to point out is that this time, we went to the Mousetrap and we went to Amélie at the St. Martin's Theatre and the Criterion. And I think the main thing for me straight away is that this time it seems a lot more organized than it was back in December. Mm-hmm. Perhaps because they've had time. They had more time. It was confirmed for longer. They knew they were coming back. They knew how it works because they had done it already. So maybe December was a trial run. And so I think this time everyone understands how it works a little better. Not just front of house teams, but also the audience, I think, understands it better. Yeah,
and I think that's true. And I do want to thank the front of house teams of both the Criterion and St. Martin's Theatre.
And the Vaudeville as well in December, because that actually did make me feel safe. Yeah. So, yeah.
But the front of house team did do a really, really good job. I suppose going through everything in order, and the first thing that's obvious to say is masks are mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
However, I mean, the devil's advocate in me is going to say that because you're allowed to take masks off to eat and drink, there is literally no point in masks whatsoever. If you're going to be taking them on and off, then you might as well not have them, especially in an indoor setting. That's what the science seems to suggest.
Well, we are not scientists, and the thing is, it's the time of exposure. So it takes a while. You have to be exposed for a while. And I was actually reading today about how unlikely it is for you to get it from someone you pass by on the street.
Yeah, that's because it's outdoors, so
but not just that,
the
but
droplets dissipate. Isn't
yes,
that?
Exactly. So there are obviously different situations. If you take them very briefly to have a drink and to eat something, I don't think it's too much of a problem. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and we didn't order drinks, but we did bring a bottle of water with us, and at the interval we did remove our masks for 3 seconds to take a glug each. So I don't hold it against anybody who's doing it. You absolutely, you can't go for 2.5 hours without having a sip of water.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
I do. But it feels a little bit redundant if people are going to be taking them off.
Well, we're not saying not wear masks at all.
No,
Just
far from it. Where I actually, I mean, that's.
We are really,
I'm caught between the fact that I think it should be mandatory just to wear the mask, full stop, and not be allowed to drink, and the fact that that's ridiculous. You have to drink.
Yeah,
I'm caught between the two of those things.
I think you do. I think we got to the point that we are basically saying do your best.
Yeah, I guess we think we did it. We did it well. I think.
Yes, I think so.
We literally took the mask off for maybe 5 seconds the entire time we were in the theater.
Yeah, I think the only worry, and this is, I think this is a worry that is seen in other areas of, I guess, where people circulate, right? That once you take your mask off, and for some people, I'm very paranoid, so that doesn't happen to me, but I think it happens to some people that they just kind of just forget about them for a little longer than they had to, or they have to. So I think let's just be mindful of other people there, and do take your mask off by all means. Do have a drink, and then put it back on.
Yeah, be mindful of the people probably covers a great deal of this.
And speaking of which, let's just kind of go through the motions of going to the theater again, right? So the first thing you will notice is that your ticket will be timed. So everyone going to the theater, I think most theaters are doing this, is given a time in which they will hopefully arrive. It's usually a 10-minute gap. So we had, for example, window exactly. We had our show, like Amélie started at 7:30. We were told to be there between 5 to 7 and 7:05. This seems to be, this doesn't really seem to be enforced extensively.
No, you're not going to be turned away if you're late.
I think they do this, and this is just me conjecturing, I'm not sure, but I believe they do this to give themselves time as well, because getting in, it just involves a little bit more now. Some people, because when you get the ticket, you also have to give your details to the theater, so either your phone number or email of everyone attending. So if you haven't done that, they're also kind of giving themselves time for people to do that.
Yeah, every individual person, not just the ticket booker. Everyone needs to give their details so that so in the event that someone was to contract COVID in the coming week or weeks, the NHS apparently will ask you where you've been recently, and will then make appropriate contacts. But the theatre asks you also to contact them yourselves. Mm-hmm. So obviously Deborah and I are hoping we're not going to get a phone call from either theatre in the coming weeks saying, "Oh, someone at that show has
exactly."
COVID. Yeah. So there's an element of an honour system, I think. I mean, if you want theatre to come back and be successful, if you end up going to a show and unfortunately contracting COVID, please do let the theatre know.
Well, because it might not have anything to do with the show. We might have caught it elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's worth kind of informing people. I think that we all want to go back to normal.
Yeah.
As soon as possible.
And track and trace helps with that.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's called test and trace now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. People didn't like the track.
No, probably not. So this is kind of the first thing that is different, right? So you have to give your details, give the details of everyone who's attending the show. And you have a timed entrance. Mm-hmm. The timed we obeyed our timed entrance. We were there at the time. I actually think when we got there was a queue for me outside the theater, so we actually got in the theater a little bit later than that. But that's fine, and I think that's the theater giving themselves time as well to have everyone in by the time of the performance.
And one Amélie, the Criterion Theatre, did a temperature check, but St. Martin's did not. I personally think temperature checks are a bit pointless, because I've had a fever in my lifetime. You're not going to the theatre with it.
No, you're unlikely to want to go. Yeah,
you're not getting out of bed with it. I don't think
it's very true, and it's also even though it is a symptom of COVID, it's obviously not. It doesn't mean that you have COVID because you have a fever, and you can have COVID without a fever.
But
so
to go to the theatre with a fever, you have to first of all be selfish enough to want to not care if you spread COVID, and then second of all, you have to be strong-willed enough to actually get yourself out of bed and go to the theater with a
which
fever,
I wouldn't be.
Which is an interesting combination
Well,
of traits.
we don't have any problem with temperatures being checked.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's just that it doesn't seem totally completely necessary at this stage anymore. Anyway,
it seems but go for it. I have no.
Yeah, go for it if you want to do that. Like the more I guess the more things you do, the better, right? For the safety of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Both theaters had like hand sanitizer stations all over. I actually think the Criterion had more of them.
Yeah, far more, and the contactless ones where you don't have to touch the device itself to get the hand sanitizer, which I really like. I know it sounds stupid because if you're sanitizing your hands, surely it doesn't matter if you're touching something other people have touched immediately prior to sanitizing your hands. But just mentally, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. So I like the ones the automated ones that's dispense sanitizer without you having to touch anything.
Look, I think that's fair enough.
I don't love it. We have a doctor friend who says she feels the same way, and she knows it doesn't make any sense. But
there you go. Yeah. Another thing that so the next thing that I think it will be different is that there will be spaces between groups of people. At St. Martin's Theatre, we had 2 seats between us and the next group, which felt very safe.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2 seats is very good. But at the Criterion, there was only 1 seat.
And I think that's the norm.
I think 1 seat's the norm. It was 1 seat at the Vaudeville back in December as well.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think I think it is enough, especially if people are compliant with mask wearing and just kind of being nice.
I think so. It's worth noting that you will have people almost definitely directly in front of you and directly behind you and we were in the stalls, which did have quite a lot of leg room, quite a lot of space as a result between rows. But definitely, I've yet to sit in the circle or upper circle where I know there's less space between rows. You could be quite close to the people in front of you and or behind you.
Yeah, but most of the time when it's higher up, you're also more. There are kind of seats are on steps, it might be different. So we don't know. When we sit further back, we'll let you know further away. Like
when we go back to the old restricted views.
But
I think for the most part you're going to be the bones of a meter away from everyone.
Yeah, which I think is now the new regulation on social distancing in this country.
With masks, yeah.
Yeah, with masks, yes.
So you're going to be the bones of a meter away.
Currently, you're not meant to book tickets with people outside your bubble household.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense because you are allowed to go into the house of somebody
but this is
and
not
hug them.
This is not to do with the theatre. That's to do with our government. And let's not get started on that.
Just saying it doesn't make sense. It's not consistent.
No. Well, yes, welcome to a Tory government. But yeah, so the other thing that was different and I actually think helped quite a lot was the fact that you don't go to the bar anymore. You get drinks brought to you. So you're with your ticket, you get a QR code and you can scan that and you can use that code to order drinks and people will bring you drinks during the interval or even before the show. And I say that helped a lot because I usually do get up to go to the toilet during interval. And if you're used to going to the theatre, you will know that you have to kind of battle your way through crowds of people standing up on the sides and queuing for the bar. And that did not happen. It was just a very clear path to the toilet. Yeah,
the only people who got up were going to the loo.
Exactly.
And it meant that there was far less fighting. It was much easier to move about with social distancing within the auditorium. And then once you got to the toilet, this is the next thing they've done. They've not every urinal, not every cubicle is being used. Some of them have been blocked off for social distancing purposes. Although weirdly they didn't do it with the sinks. So they did allow everyone to line up in a sink, which was we didn't. People were being sensible.
I think it was done. At the Criterion, I believe it was done, and I think the other one as well. But
not
the thing
the
is,
for the men's.
well, I think they have a sign saying maintain social distancing, but they haven't actually blocked off the sink.
Yeah, but they have blocked off the urinals, which is a bit weird.
Oh right, okay.
But the point, they also were cute. Had ushers making sure not too many people were going in at a time.
Yeah.
1 in, 1 out policy. The bathroom, the Criterion was big enough for people to move around each other. The St. Martin's was not. However, there were far fewer people.
Just getting up.
Yeah, because the auditorium is smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And people again, it was quite small. There was a little bit of having to back against a wall, trying to go around people, but it was literally like 2 people were being there at a time. People were being sensible. It doesn't reasonable people are going to go, oh, that's a really small bathroom. Oh, I'll let you go out before I go in.
Yes, definitely. And I think even at the Criterion, as Chris said, has great toilet facilities. And this is something I take note of because when I go to the theatre, because usually they don't have a lot of cubicles and toilets.
Yeah.
And the Criterion does. It's clearly been refurbished recently. However, they weren't even allowing everyone to just go into the toilet at the same time. So when I actually got in, there were lots of empty cubicles, so they weren't allowing everyone to go in just to avoid the people meeting and the just all those kind of awkward situations.
Yeah.
So it felt very safe. Overall, like the standing, the getting up.
Yeah, the staff were kept on top of it the whole time.
They did.
And then the fact that drinks are brought to the seat meant, as you said, no one was getting up for the bar. It's probably actually easier for the staff as well, not having to people clambering for the bar.
Yeah, because you can order your drinks beforehand for the interval, which is always something that you can always do.
That, yeah.
But you don't have to get up to get up and go to the bar to collect them. Yeah. They are brought to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that will take some getting used to for some people, especially those that are not as tech savvy. To have to order drinks on their phones, but it will work out. And the ushers are very helpful. I actually watched ushers helping people when they couldn't do it. So it is great. It's a good system. It feels very safe. That the drinks are being brought to you.
Yeah.
What else?
I think that's it in terms of during the show, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see anybody not complying. I didn't see anybody not wearing a mask apart from to take a sip of their drink.
No.
I'm hopeful that the ushers would be on top of things like that. No, I didn't see anybody changing their seats.
No.
People seem to be theatre people are generally speaking are good people.
Yeah, I think
it's a good community. The theatre going community, I find, is a pleasant community, generally speaking.
It is, yeah.
And people are usually considered. Look, don't get me wrong. We had a phone go off in both performances, twice in fact.
Just for tradition's sake, you have to have a phone go off in the performance.
Some people are always going to be a little bit selfish, but for the most part, the theatre community is a good community, I find.
Yeah, and. I think, yes, overall, it was a good experience. I felt very safe as well.
Yes.
I think because there's no moving about, it just feels very safe. There's no one, people try to be mindful of getting past you. I didn't have anyone walk past me in either other show.
No. Actually, let me put it this way. This is a good one, I think, because it is worth saying that we've had our vaccines, as you said. But let me put it this way. If you're going on public transport, this is absolutely in no way any worse.
No, and
if anything, it's better. I think that we were at more risk on the train than we were in the theatre.
Oh, absolutely. And also, even just going into shops can be quite busy, even when they limit numbers, because people are less mindful when they're in shops, I think. So even going into shops, I think going to the theatre is one of the safest I felt out and about during this time,
Regardless of how you feel about, are we ready to do this? Are we, regardless of how you feel about whether or not we should be in lockdown or not in lockdown, if the 100%, I can say with absolute confidence, despite not being medically trained, I can still say with absolute confidence that the theatre is not the thing that's gonna lead you to catching COVID.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, obviously anything could. You can catch it in some ridiculous way, but it's just not. There are so many more dangerous things.
Yeah.
That are more likely to spread it, that have been going on, the whole time.
Yes, it's very true.
If you're comfortable going to a shop to get your groceries or getting on a bus or any of those things, then you will be. I can promise.
Even sitting inside to eat as well. If you're comfortable doing that, which now we are allowed to do in the UK.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with any of those things and you're oohing and ahhing about the theatre, because obviously you haven't done it yet, you're not sure what it's going to be like. I promise you're going to feel equally comfortable.
Yeah.
Going to theatre as those other things.
Yes.
In my opinion, you'll feel more comfortable, but you definitely will not feel less comfortable.
Yes, I completely agree with you. It's definitely the case. And I even said that back in December when we were lucky to go see Mischief Movie Night. It was just before everything shut down again. And I remember saying to Chris that I felt less safe in the shops just before Christmas than I did at the theatre.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was definitely
even on
true.
Oxford Street, just on the street.
On the street, yeah, outside. It was packed. It was like nothing was happening, and people obviously in England people never had to wear masks outside. and which is not up to us to debate right now. But people weren't wearing masks, and there were so many of them, and it made me quite anxious to be in that place, but not at the theater. So at the theater, I felt quite safe.
Yeah.
And knowing as well, as Chris had mentioned before, like because they have our details, they can contact us and we can contact them in case something happens. I think it feels safe, and it kind of weirdly builds community because we're all kind of looking out for each other.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing I want to mention, I don't know if you have anything else in your notes, but the last thing I want to mention is that the last measure that I can think of is the staggered exit.
Oh, yes.
Because so in order for not everyone to just get up and, leave at the same time, they were the ushers and the front of house team were kind of helping people and doing row by row, which was very helpful. You literally, it doesn't take very long for you to go out for it to get to you. It will get to you very quickly. If anything, it will delay you for about a minute. Mm-hmm. So it's not something that will make it too slow.
There's always a big queue for the mass exits at the end anyway.
Yeah,
so
and
all they've done is put a bit of a structure on that queue.
Well, exactly. And sometimes if you are in the middle of a row and the people next to you haven't decided that they will not stand up straight away, you'll have to wait anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just organized, and it does work really well. It felt very safe, and look, I don't know if I would be feeling as comfortable if I hadn't been vaccinated. I don't know. I think so, because I felt quite comfortable and safe in December.
Yeah, we went in December when cases were much higher.
Yeah.
And we were not vaccinated at all, and
it felt safe.
I felt safer this time.
Oh yes, of course, especially because we're vaccinated. We know a lot of people are vaccinated as well, and
yes.
Vaccine is a community job. Mm-hmm. We all have to do it for it to have the best possible results. So so it obviously felt safer now because we are going through a different time. We're coming out of a lockdown instead of going into one.
Yeah, well, I think without blowing my own trumpet, I think the comparison advice I gave is probably the most important thing to take from this, which is that if you're still at home because you're very vulnerable, you've got a very bad health condition, which makes and you're still reluctant even just to go get groceries, then obviously don't be going to the theater.
Exactly.
But if you have been okay going to, if you feel comfortable enough to go to the supermarket and or to get on a bus or a tube, you can 100% do this and you'll feel equally as comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. If you're okay going to the pub, you can go to the theater.
Oh my god, yes. The pub, yeah, of course you can go to the theater and go to the pub.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully that was helpful.
We'll report back if we go to other shows. I think it's an interesting different times, and I would definitely want to hear from other people who have had the experience. So yes. I'm sure we'll be talking about this, maybe not dedicating a whole section, but when we review the shows we go to,
we'll mention it in the reviews.
We can mention it.
And please, so let us know actually in the comments on Instagram. Do let us know if you've been to theatre.
Yes.
And how you found it. If you agree with us, or if you've got any conflicting opinions. Maybe you didn't feel safe, and if so, please tell us why.
And also, look, we're being very careful all throughout this time, and I have not been comfortable to do things that we're allowed to. That we were allowed to do.
You were allowed to do,
last year, so I 100% understand if people aren't comfortable to do certain things.
But it does feel good now to be seemingly safely claiming back our lives, especially our theatre lives.
Yes, definitely does.
So with that, I think that brings us to the end of the episode.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you got some value out of our review of Amélie. As you know, Deborah really liked it, and I quite liked it. We do have very different opinions, Deborah and I, actually, on
about most things.
Most things, and a lot of the shows we see. But every so often we
agree.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that if we both love a show, then most people will probably get some value out of it.
I guess because we come from very different. We expect very different things, I think.
Yeah,
we
definitely expect different things.
And that's why I guess that's why it's interesting to. I hope it's interesting to hear us talk about it.
And these are the kind of conversations we have anyway. That's why we're now recording them.
That's very true.
For your listening pleasure. And hopefully the conversation about going back to theatre in the current times is also helpful. So do let us know. Comment on Instagram, please. Let us know about your experiences and how you found the episode. And we will be back with you next week for some more...
Theatre stuff.
Theatre stuff.
Bye.